Welcome to Hania English Podcast. Today's story is Chapter 2 of Harry Potter, The Vanishing Glass, a captivating tale for English learners. It's been 10 years since that fateful night when Harry was left on the Dursleys' doorstep. And today, well, it's Dudley's birthday. We're about to witness how a seemingly ordinary day takes a magical turn, revealing glimpses of the extraordinary life that awaits our young hero.
Yes, and let's not forget the Dursleys. Uncle Vernon, a man who could bellow louder than a foghorn when upset. Aunt Petunia always peering out the curtains like a nervous bird worried about appearances. And Dudley, their spoiled son, who treated Harry more like a punching bag than a nephew.
It's almost as if they're trying to squeeze every bit of magic out of Harry's life, isn't it? They make him sleep in a cramped cupboard under the stairs, dress him in Dudley's hand-me-downs, and blame him for every little thing that goes wrong.
It's quite a contrast, isn't it? The Dursleys clinging to their ordinary lives, while Harry, with his unruly black hair, piercing green eyes, and that lightning-shaped scar, is a constant reminder of the extraordinary world they so desperately try to ignore.
And that scar, that mysterious mark on his forehead, is a constant source of fascination for Harry. He can't remember how he got it, but it sets him apart, makes him different. It's like a silent whisper of a past he can't quite grasp.
Speaking of setting him apart, the Dursleys seem to fear anything remotely out of the ordinary happening around Harry. Remember how they try to tame his hair? But no matter how short they chop it, it always grows back quickly, almost defying their attempts at normalcy.
It's like the magic within him is trying to burst free,
Oh.
despite their best efforts to suppress it. Now, Dudley's birthday is always a bit of a trial for Harry. Usually he's shipped off to Mrs. Fig, the cat-loving neighbor.
Mrs. Fig, with her house smelling of cabbage and her endless tales of feline adventures. Not exactly a thrilling way to spend a birthday, wouldn't you say?
But this year, something unexpected happens. Mrs. Fig breaks her leg, leaving the Dursleys in a predicament. What are they going to do with Harry? They can't possibly leave him home alone, so they're forced to take him to the zoo. Can you imagine? Harry's first ever trip to the zoo.
It's almost ironic, isn't it? The Dursleys, so obsessed with appearing normal, are forced to do something quite out of the ordinary.
Exactly, and you can bet Uncle Vernon wasn't happy about it. He grumbled the entire car ride, complaining about motorcycles and how they're a menace to society.
Which is interesting, because Harry, lost in his thoughts, dreams of a flying motorcycle, a small hint, perhaps, of the magical adventures to come.
Perhaps. But for now, he's stuck in a stuffy car with the Dursleys, headed to the zoo. Now, the zoo is a whirlwind of sights and sounds. There are roaring lions, screeching monkeys, and slithering snakes. But Dudley, being Dudley, is quickly bored. He wants to see something huge, something scary, something exciting.
Ah, the impatience of youth. He finds the gorillas fascinating for a while. Mostly because, as Harry observes, the alpha male looks a lot like Uncle Vernon, just without the mustache.
A rather astute observation for a 10-year-old, wouldn't you say? It shows Harry's sharp wit and ability to find humor even in the most mundane situations. He's not just observing, he's thinking, comparing, drawing connections.
Absolutely. And while Dudley throws a tantrum because the gorilla isn't putting on a show, Harry slips away to explore the reptile house, a much quieter and calmer place.
The reptile house is dark and cool, with glass enclosures housing all sorts of fascinating creatures, lizards basking under heat lamps, turtles swimming in murky water, and of course, snakes coiled up in their enclosures.
And that's where Harry encounters the creature that will change his day, a large boa constrictor from Brazil, sound asleep in its enclosure.
Now, boa constrictor is a new word for us. A boa constrictor is a type of snake that squeezes its prey to death.
Yes, they are quite impressive creatures, but this one seems quite content to snooze the day away.
Much to Dudley's disappointment. Who bangs on the glass, trying to rouse the snake? But even Uncle Vernon's gruff shouting fails to wake the slumbering serpent.
But something quite peculiar happens when Harry approaches the enclosure. He feels a strange connection to the snake, almost as if they understand each other.
And here comes the magical moment. As Harry stares at the snake, it slowly opens its eyes, fixes its gaze on him, and winks.
Yes, winks. And not a blink, mind you, but a deliberate wink, as if sharing a secret joke. And the most astonishing part, nobody else notices.
It's a moment of pure magic.
Yeah.
A connection between Harry and the snake that transcends language. They communicate silently. The snake even expressing its boredom and frustration at being trapped in its enclosure.
And get this, the snake even reveals that it longs to be back in Brazil, or at least dreams of it. It's as if this ordinary zoo enclosure suddenly feels too small, too confining for both Harry and the snake.
It's almost symbolic, wouldn't you say? The snake yearning for freedom, just like Harry longs to escape the suffocating grip of the Dursleys.
Precisely. And just as this thought crosses Harry's mind, the peace is shattered. Dudley, in typical fashion, barges in, shoving Harry aside to get a better look at the snake.
Oh, that Dudley. Always pushing and shoving, never thinking of anyone but himself.
Yeah.
Poor Harry, he stumbles back, landing hard on the floor. But as he falls, something incredible happens.
The glass in front of the snake's enclosure vanishes. It simply disappears, as if it were never there.
Imagine the scene. People are screaming, running for the exits. Complete chaos erupts. The zookeeper is bewildered, wondering how on earth the snake escaped.
And amidst all this pandemonium, the snake slithers past Harry, giving him a grateful nod as if to say, "Thank you for setting me free."
It's a moment of pure wonder. A glimpse into the extraordinary power that Harry possesses, even if he's completely unaware of it.
Yes, this incident is a clear example of what we call unintentional magic. It's not uncommon for young wizards and witches to exhibit bursts of magic, especially when their emotions are heightened.
So Harry didn't consciously make the glass disappear, but his connection with the snake, his empathy for its plight, somehow triggered this magical event.
Exactly. And of course, the Dursleys, being utterly clueless about magic, completely misinterpret the situation. They blame Harry for the entire incident, accusing him of causing trouble.
They're so blinded by their fear of anything out of the ordinary that they refuse to see the truth, even when it's staring them right in the face.
Yeah. Their reaction is quite understandable in a way. They've built their lives around the idea of normalcy, and anything that challenges that notion is perceived as a threat.
They end up dragging a bewildered and slightly terrified Harry back home, locking him in his cupboard as punishment.
Poor Harry, alone in the dark, his stomach rumbling with hunger. He reflects on his 10 miserable years with the Dursleys.
It's heartbreaking, really. He's just a child, yearning for love and acceptance. But all he receives is criticism and neglect.
But even in his darkest moments, something keeps Harry going. He remembers those strange encounters he's had over the years, with strangers who seemed to know him, people who would smile and wave, only to disappear before he could get a closer look.
Those brief, fleeting moments of connection must have given him a glimmer of hope, a sense that perhaps he wasn't completely alone in the world.
Exactly. Those encounters foreshadow Harry's future at Hogwarts, where he'll finally find a place where he belongs, where his difference is celebrated, not shunned.
Speaking of Hogwarts, it's worth explaining this term for our listeners who might be new to the world of Harry Potter. Hogwarts is a magical school, a place where young witches and wizards learn to control their magic and develop their skills.
It's a place of wonder and excitement, filled with talking portraits, moving staircases, and secret passages. Imagine a school where you could learn to fly on a broomstick or brew magical potions.
It sounds incredible. It's no wonder Harry feels a sense of anticipation, a longing for something more than the dreary existence he endures with the Dursleys.
And that's what makes The Vanishing Glass such a pivotal chapter. It sets the stage for Harry's journey of self-discovery, his escape from the confines of the ordinary world into a realm of magic and wonder.
But before we delve further into that journey, let's take a moment to appreciate J.K. Rowling's masterful use of language. She has a knack for creating vivid imagery and using words in a way that sparks our imagination.
Absolutely. For instance, take the word scrawny, used to describe Piers Polkiss, Dudley's equally unpleasant friend. Scrawny means thin and bony, almost unhealthily so.
It's a great word to paint a picture of someone who's small and weak, especially when contrasted with Dudley's rather rotund physique.
And speaking of contrasting characters, let's revisit the Dursleys for a moment. Their fear of magic, their desperate attempts to suppress anything out of the ordinary. It speaks to a larger theme, wouldn't you say?
I think you're right. It's almost as if they represent the part of society that refuses to acknowledge anything that challenges their worldview. They're so focused on fitting in, on appearing normal, that they miss out on the beauty and wonder that surrounds them.
It's a cautionary tale, really, a reminder that sometimes clinging too tightly to our preconceived notions can blind us to the extraordinary possibilities that exist beyond our limited perspectives.
And isn't that what makes Harry's journey so compelling? He embraces the unknown, he welcomes the extraordinary, and in doing so, he discovers his true self.
His journey resonates with us because we all yearn for that sense of belonging, that feeling of being accepted for who we truly are.
And speaking of acceptance, imagine for a moment that you were in Harry's shoes. Would you tell the Dursleys about the snake winking? Would you risk their ridicule and disbelief? Or would you keep this magical secret to yourself? A precious treasure tucked away in your heart.
It's a tough question, isn't it? On the one hand, sharing such an incredible experience with someone might lessen the burden, the feeling of isolation.
But on the other hand, Revealing such a fantastical tale to people so deeply rooted in their mundane world might backfire, leading to more punishment and isolation. What do you think?
It's a dilemma that many young people face, especially those who feel different, who sense that they don't quite fit in. It's a universal struggle, really, the search for acceptance, the desire to connect with others who understand us. And in Harry's case, that connection will eventually lead him to Hogwarts, where you'll find a whole community of witches and wizards who share his experiences.
It's almost as if this chapter is a microcosm of Harry's entire journey. We see his isolation, his yearning for something more, and the first hints of his extraordinary potential.
Exactly. And that brings us to another interesting word from the chapter, gibber. After the snake escapes, Dudley and Piers are so terrified they can only gibber, which means to speak rapidly and incoherently, usually out of fear or excitement.
I can just imagine them stammering and sputtering, completely losing their composure. It's quite a contrast to Harry, who, despite being wrongly accused, remains remarkably calm and collected.
That inner strength, that ability to remain grounded even in the face of adversity, will serve Harry well throughout his adventures.
It's almost as if the Dursleys, with their constant negativity and attempts to squash his spirit, have inadvertently made him stronger.
That's an interesting perspective. Perhaps facing challenges early on has equipped Harry with resilience and a determination to overcome obstacles.
And let's not forget the lingering mystery surrounding Harry's scar. What really happened that night 10 years ago? Why was he left on the Dursleys' doorstep? And what's the significance of that lightning-shaped mark?
These are questions that will continue to intrigue us as we journey through the series, but for now, let's appreciate the symbolism of that scar.
It sets him apart, makes him different. It's a constant reminder of his past, of the tragedy that took his parents. But it's also a mark of his power, a visible symbol of the magic that flows within him.
It's like a badge of honor, a testament to his unique destiny.
Exactly. And as we conclude our deep dive into the Vanishing Glass, I want to leave you with this final thought. This chapter is more than just a fun adventure story. It's a reflection on the power of empathy, the importance of embracing our individuality, and the enduring human desire for connection and belonging.
It's a reminder that even in the most ordinary of settings, magic can be found, and that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a simple act of kindness, like a boy connecting with a lonely snake in a zoo.
So until next time, happy reading.